The alien generals said no army could hold Blackglass Valley for more than 6 hours. Not because of enemy fire, not because of orbital bombardment, because the planet itself killed infantry faster than bullets ever could. The air burned lungs through sealed masks. The rain ate through armor joints. The mud was full of living spores that crawled toward heat. Even the rocks sweated neurotoxin when struck by artillery. 7 species had tried to take that valley. 7 armies had broken. Then the humans arrived. They were tired, under-equipped, outnumbered 30-1, and by the end of the 9th day, every alien empire in the Orion Arm had learned the same terrible lesson. You could wound a human, you could starve him, you could poison him, you could bury him under a mountain of fire. But if his brother was still breathing beside him, and if there was one last bullet in the chamber, he would stand up again. And he would make you regret ever calling Earth a primitive death world. Captain Elias Boss first saw Charon from the viewport of a troop carrier with one engine coughing blue fire. The planet filled half the stars. It was not beautiful. Some worlds looked like jewels from orbit. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents shining under gentle suns. Charon looked like a bruise. Its clouds were black and yellow, churning in slow bands around a rust-red surface veined with rivers the color of old blood. Lightning flashed inside the atmosphere in sheets, not bolts, crawling across the sky like living nerves. Somewhere beneath those storms lay Blackglass Valley. Somewhere beneath those storms waited the enemy. Elias stood with one gloved hand braced against the bulkhead while the carrier shook around him. The deck trembled under his boots. Red warning lights washed over the faces of the soldiers strapped along the walls. Men and women of the 9th Terran Expeditionary Infantry. Officially, they were the Death World Adaptation Battalion. To everyone else in the coalition, they were the Hellwalkers. Elias hated the nickname. He hated how the aliens said it with awe, as if humans were monsters bred in caves and fire. He hated how some of his own soldiers had started to enjoy it. Most of all, he hated that it was useful. Fear had weight in war. Fear slowed trigger fingers. Fear made enemies hesitate, and hesitation kept humans alive. Sergeant Mara Keene sat across from him, checking the seal on her rifle with the calm patience of a woman sharpening a kitchen knife. Her left cheek was crossed by a burn scar from the siege of Vera Station. It pulled slightly when she smiled, which she rarely did. Beside her, Private Jonah Pike held a plastic photo strip in both hands. 3 children grinned from it, all missing teeth and sunburned noses. Pike had been 22 when he enlisted. He had lied about his age the other way, claiming to be older because Mars militias had turned him away twice. Now he looked 16. Dr. Samira Holt knelt near the rear hatch, tightening the emergency injector packs on a crate of medical foam. She was not infantry. She reminded everyone of that whenever they called her ma'am. Her armor was patched, her sleeves stained, and her eyes were the exhausted brown of someone who had spent too many nights choosing who got the last dose of antitoxin. Lieutenant Rook stood near the cockpit entrance. He was not human. His species, the Ver, were tall, narrow-boned avians with silver feathers along the neck and black eyes too large for comfort. Rook wore a coalition liaison uniform modified around his folded wing arms. He watched the Terrans like a scholar trapped in a cage full of wolves. Elias had met him 2 days earlier. The first thing Rook had said was, "Captain Voss, I am told humans can function after catastrophic tissue damage." Elias had looked at him for a long moment. Then he had answered, "Depends on the human." Rook had not known if that was a joke. The troop carrier lurched hard. Someone cursed. The pilot's voice cracked over the intercom. "Atmospheric entry in 30 seconds. Secure helmets. Seal check now." Elias tapped his throat mic. "All squads seal up." Across the bay, helmets lowered. Locks snapped. Suit displays flickered green, yellow, green. Charon's atmosphere was a weapon. The coalition briefing had been clear. Do not breathe it. Do not touch exposed soil. Do not trust standing water. Do not remove helmet under any condition. Do not remain outside fortified filters longer than 4 hours unless human. That last line had been added in a different font. Elias had read it 3 times and felt something cold move through his chest. Unless human. As if that made them immune. As if Earth had made them gods. Earth had not made them gods. Earth had made them stubborn animals with scar tissue in their lungs, bacteria in their guts, calcium in their bones, adrenaline in their blood, and an old, ugly talent for surviving where survival should have been impossible. But impossible still killed. He knew that better than anyone. The carrier punched into the atmosphere. The world became violence. The hull screamed. The lights went out, then came back red. Soldiers rocked against their restraints while heat shields roared outside like a furnace door opening. Elias closed his eyes. For 1 second, he was not above Quran. He was back on Ceres Ridge, 12 years earlier, listening to his wife's voice on a broken comm as the colony dome cracked around her. Mina had not screamed. That was the part that followed him. She had only said his name once. Elias. Then static. He opened his eyes. Mara was watching him from across the bay. She knew. Not all of it. Enough. He gave her the smallest nod. She returned it. The carrier dropped through the storm. Outside the narrow viewport, Karen's surface rose in flashes. Jagged black ridges, steam vents, fields of broken glass, rivers foaming under toxic rain. Then the clouds parted. Blackglass Valley appeared. It was wider than Elias expected, a long scar between two mountain ranges filled with shattered obsidian and low red fog. At its center stood Fort Mercy, the last coalition stronghold on the continent. Its shield towers flickered weakly against the storm. Beyond the fort, across the valley floor, came the enemy, the Korvath Dominion. Even from altitude, Elias could see them moving. Armored columns crawled through the fog. Thousands of infantry in sealed carapace suits advanced behind walking artillery engines. Their banners rose on antenna masts, black triangles marked with the Dominion sigil. 3 claws around a star. The Korvath had taken 11 systems in 8 months. They did not negotiate. They did not ransom prisoners. They stripped worlds of fuel, metals, and biological data, then left the native population sterilized or dead. Now they wanted Charon, not for land, not for glory, for what lay under Blackglass Valley, a pre-Union defense relay buried beneath the rock. Old technology. Powerful enough to control every junk corridor within 40 light-years. If the Dominion activated it, 3 human colonies and 5 coalition worlds would be cut off. Ceres Ridge had been one colony on the edge of nowhere. This would be millions. The carrier banked toward Fort Mercy. A streak of white light rose from the fog. "Missile lock!" the pilot shouted. Countermeasures burst outside. The missile ignored them. It struck the carrier's port engine. The world flipped. Steel screamed. Restraint snapped. Someone hit the ceiling. Elias slammed shoulder first into a crate and tasted blood where his teeth cut his tongue. The pilot was yelling. The alarm was louder. "Brace! Brace! Brace!" The carrier fell. It hit the valley floor like a thrown hammer. The impact tore the troop bay open. Heat, poison fog, and black rain rushed in. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Sergeant Keene's voice cut through the ringing. "Up! Up! Move or die!" Elias forced himself onto one knee. His suit display flashed yellow. Left shoulder joint strained. External toxin load rising. He grabbed his rifle. "Sound off," voices answered in fragments. "Keene alive. Holt alive. Pike alive. Denton, hit but breathing. Chow's down." Elias stumbled through smoke and sparks. The rear ramp was twisted halfway open. Outside, red fog rolled across broken glass. Rain hissed on armor. The cockpit was gone. No pilot, no co-pilot, just fire. Mara reached Chow first. The corporal was pinned under a collapsed rack, helmet cracked but sealed. Blood floated in the visor. "Help me," Mara snapped. Elias and Pike grabbed the rack and lifted. It did not move. Mara wedged her rifle under the metal as a lever. "Again." They heaved. The rack shifted enough for Holt to drag Chow free. Chow's lead was wrong below the knee. Holt slapped foam around the fracture and injected pain blockers straight through the suit port. Chow groaned. "I can walk." "No, you can lie professionally," Holt said. "That's your job now." Outside, the first Korvath scout round snapped against the wreck, sharp cracks, blue plasma burning holes in the hull. Elias checked his map. They were 4 kilometers short of Fort Mercy, behind enemy forward lines. The carrier's distress beacon was dead. He looked at the surviving soldiers. 27 had launched from orbit. 19 stood in the wreck. 1 could not walk. The valley wanted them dead. The Dominion was coming to finish the work. Elias keyed his comm. "Fort Mercy, this is Captain Voss, 9th Terran. Crash-landed grid 7-9, 19 effectives, 1 immobile casualty. Request extraction or fire corridor." Static answered. Then a voice broke through, thin and buried under interference. "Voss, Fort Mercy. Extraction impossible. Korvath jammers active, all gates sealed. Enemy breached outer trench. If you can move, move now." "Who is this?" "Colonel Asher Bell. Fort Command. Listen carefully, Captain. If you reach us, bring every breathing human you have. We need infantry on the wall." The signal cut. Mara looked at him. 4 kilometers, she said. "In this soup," Pike muttered. Rook stood near the torn ramp, staring at the fog, his feathers pressed flat against his neck. "Captain," he said, "my atmospheric warnings indicate lethal exposure in 1 hour." "For you," Mara said. "For most coalition species," Rook replied. "Your medical appendix claims humans can endure longer." Holt laughed once. It was not a happy sound. Medical appendices are written by people not currently standing in poison rain. A plasma bolt struck the ramp. Elias dropped behind cover. Shapes moved in the fog. Korvath scouts. Tall insectoid figures in black pressure armor, forearms folded around long rifles, helmets smooth and eyeless. They advanced with mechanical precision, stepping over acid pools and glass without hesitation. Elias felt the old battlefield calm settle over him. Not peace. Never peace. Just the narrowing. The world reduced to angles, breath, ammunition, distance, and the people he had to get home. He pointed 2 fingers. Mara, left flank. Pike, carry Chow's ammo. Holt, keep Chow breathing. Rook, stay behind me. Rook stiffened. "I am a Dominion tactical specialist. You're also dying faster than us. I can still fight." "Good. Fight from behind me." Mara's scar twitched. "Hellwalkers," Elias said over the squad channel. "We are 4 kilometers from friendly walls. Between us and those walls is a full Dominion assault force, a toxic valley, and weather that hates all living things. We do not outrun it. We do not outgun it. We outlast it." He racked his rifle. "Move." They burst from the wreck into Charon's rain. The first scout died before it saw them. Mara's shot punched through its visor and snapped its head back. Elias hit the second center mass, 3 controlled bursts. Pike fired too fast at the third, missing twice before a round caught the alien in the knee. It fell, shrieking through a translator grill, and Sergeant Keene finished it without slowing. The humans ran. Not gracefully. Not like heroes. They stumbled over glass ridges, slid through black mud, dragged Chow on a folded emergency sled while acid rain smoked off their armor. The fog reduced the world to 20 meters. Everything beyond was sound. Distant artillery, the insect click chatter of Dominion comms, the wet rasp of their own breathing. Rook began to cough after 12 minutes. At 18, his stride faltered. At 23, he fell. Pike turned back first. "Captain." Elias and Mara hauled the alien up between them. Rook's visor was clouding from the inside. His breathing came in high whistles. "I am slowing you," Rook said. "Leave me with a beacon." "No," Elias said. "That is tactically irrational. Get used to it." Rook's black eyes fixed on him through the visor. "Why?" Elias almost said. "Because you're under my command." He almost said because humans don't leave people behind. Both were true. Neither was the whole truth. Because once, on Ceres Ridge, he had been too far away to reach someone he loved. He adjusted Rook's arm over his shoulder. "Because I said move." They moved. The first hour became a knife. Karn cut them with every step. Suit filters clogged. Boots lost traction. The wounded cursed. The living carried them anyway. At the edge of a shattered basalt field, they found the remains of the 3rd Ver Light Infantry. 200 bodies lay half buried in red mist. Their armor was intact, their weapons still loaded. They had not been overrun. They had simply stopped. Some had collapsed on their knees. Others had curled around cracked filter packs. Their delicate bones showed through places where the rain had eaten sealant. Rook made a sound Elias had never heard from him. Low, broken. Mara's voice softened. "Your people?" Rook stared at the dead. "My academy class deployed with the 3rd. No one spoke. The humans stood in the rain while Dominion artillery thundered over the valley. Pike removed the photo strip from inside his chest plate and tucked it deeper, as if the dead might see it. Holt checked Rook's vitals and shook her head. "He needs Fort Mercy's filters within an hour." Elias looked across the field. The direct route led through the dead Ver and down into a low trench line. Beyond that, the fort's shield towers flickered faintly through fog. But something was wrong. Too quiet. He crouched near one fallen Ver officer and wiped sludge from the cracked command slate still clutched in its hand. The device flickered. A partial tactical map appeared. Mara leaned close. "Those aren't coalition marks." Rook's breathing hitched. "Dominion burrow charges." The map showed a crescent of subterranean explosives under the valley floor, directly along the route to Fort Mercy's south gate. Elias felt his stomach tighten. Why leave the bodies intact? Rook understood first. Bait. The valley erupted. Explosions ripped through the dead field, throwing glass, mud, and bodies into the air. The shockwave knocked Elias flat, his visor filled with warning symbols. Someone screamed over comms. Then the Korvath rose from the earth. "Not scouts! Assault infantry!" Dozens of them unfolded from camouflaged pits, their carapace armor slick with mud, rifles already firing. Blue plasma stitched through the fog. A Terran named Alvarez went down with a hole burned through his chest. Denton took a hit in the arm and spun into the mud. Chow's sled flipped, and Holt threw herself over him as rounds cracked against her backplate. Elias crawled behind a blackstone ridge. "Mara, on it!" She and 3 others laid suppressing fire into the fog. Pike fumbled a grenade, dropped it, grabbed it again with shaking hands, and looked at Elias. "I can't see them. Don't aim at them," Elias shouted. "Aim where they're going." Pike swallowed, then hurled the grenade toward the moving muzzle flashes. It detonated behind the Corvath line. Alien bodies scattered. Mara gave a sharp bark of approval. "There you go, kid." The Corvath pushed forward anyway. They came in disciplined waves. 4 armed rifles braced, armor shrugging off glancing shots. The commander strode behind them beneath a shield emitter, taller than the rest, cloak hanging in strips from its shoulders. Its translator boomed across the field. "Deathworld infantry, your reputation exceeds your tactical value. Surrender your biological data and you will be processed painlessly." Mara laughed. "Processed painlessly? That's generous." Elias counted ammunition. Too little. He scanned the terrain. To the right, a field of steam vents pulsed under thin crust. To the left, the mined path. Behind them, open killing ground. Ahead, Corvath infantry. A bad position. But bad positions were honest. They told you what had to be done. "Rook," Elias said. "Those vent fields. Stable?" Rook lifted his head weakly. "No. The crust ruptures under heat and pressure." Elias looked at Mara. She smiled this time. Mean. Very. He opened squad comms. "Fall back right. Controlled. Denton, smoke. Pike, help Holt with Cow. Mara, make them chase us." The humans retreated in bursts. The Corvath advanced. Their commander misread the movement as panic. Elias could hear it in the speed of their pursuit. Their formation tightened. Their rifles fired faster. Plasma bolts struck the ground around the humans, heating the crust above the vent field. Elias waited until his boots felt the ground tremble. "Now!" Mara fired a flare round into the center of the Corvath line. The crust gave way. Steam exploded upward in a roaring wall. It was not water vapor, not really. It was superheated acid fog from Charon's deep vents, hot enough to soften armor seals and corrosive enough to eat through Dominion joint plating in seconds. The Corvath formation vanished inside it. Their screams tore through the translator network. Elias did not enjoy it. He had stopped enjoying enemy screams years ago. But he used the moment. "Run!" They ran while the ground collapsed behind them. The blast took 6 Corvath squads out of the fight. It also burned through Denton's damaged arm seal. Holt had to cut the armor sleeve away and wrap the limb in neutralizing gel while he bit down so hard his teeth cracked. They reached an abandoned trench 2 kilometers from Fort Mercy. By then, only 17 could fight. Chow was unconscious. Rook was barely breathing. Elias's left shoulder had gone numb. The trench was built for a species half their height. The humans crouched inside while black rain drummed on broken overhead plates. Fort Mercy's walls appeared through the fog. Close. Too close to be safe. The outer trenches were burning. Coalition soldiers moved like shadows on the ramparts. Dominion artillery crawlers hammered the shields, each impact lighting the clouds from below. Elias tried the comm again. "Fort Mercy, this is Voss. We are 2 clicks south. We have wounded. Request gate opening." Static. Then Colonel Bell answered. "Negative, Captain. South gate is compromised. Dominion kill zone covers the approach. We can see your walls, and they can see you. Listen to me. We have maybe 3 hours before the North Tower fails. If it fails, the relay vault is open. I need you inside, but not through the gate." Mara looked toward the wall. "No gate, no shuttle, no tunnel map. That's a problem." Bell's voice crackled. "There is an old drainage culvert beneath the western ridge. It exits inside our motor pool. The Veer refused to use it." Rook stirred. "Because Charon's runoff collects in low channels, the toxin concentration would be extreme." Elias closed his eyes for half a second. "Of course. How far?" Bell answered. 800 meters west, then 1 kilometer through the culvert." Holt stared at Elias. "In runoff? Captain, that's not exposure. That's marinating. Can humans survive it?" She did not answer quickly. That was answer enough. "Maybe," she said. "If seals hold, if nobody panics, if nobody's suit is already compromised. Denton can't go. Rook definitely can't." Rook tried to sit up. "I will go. You'll drown in your own blood in 10 minutes, Holt said. Rook looked at De Vere dead beyond the trench, barely visible through the rain. Then he looked at Elias. "I know Dominion command structure. If I reach Fort Mercy, I can help Colonel Bell. You won't reach it through that culvert. Rook's voice hardened. Then make me useful before I die. The words landed heavy. Elias lifted the alien liaison. 2 days earlier, Rook had treated humans like specimens. Now he was shaking in poison rain, asking for purpose because the alternative was helplessness. Elias knew that feeling. He knelt beside him. You're not dying here. That is not yours to decide.
No, but it is mine to fight,
Mara interrupted.
Captain, movement east.
Elias lifted his rifle scope. Through the fog, Dominion silhouettes gathered along the ridge behind them. More than before, a lot more. They had been tracked. A voice cut across an open frequency. The Korvath commander again. I am War Marshal Threx of the Dominion 3rd Spear. Your maneuver was noted. Your endurance is noted. Your tactical cruelty is noted. Mara muttered. Flattery will get you shot. Threx continued. Your species compensates for inferior physiology with irrational cohesion. You risk mission success for wounded units. This is exploitable. A new image appeared on Elias's visor, forced through the hacked coalition channel. Fort Mercy's outer wall. A prisoner line. Coalition soldiers stripped of weapons, kneeling in the mud before Dominion guns. Among them were humans from another crashed transport. Elias recognized one. Lieutenant Grady, commander of 2nd Platoon. Blood ran down Grady's face. He looked into the recorder and managed a crooked grin. Threx's voice lowered. Approach Fort Mercy, and these captives die. Attempt the culvert, and these captives die. Surrender, and they will be interrogated before termination. Pike whispered, Jesus. Mara's jaw tightened. Holt looked away. Elias stared at Grady's face on the feed. The lieutenant's mouth moved. No sound came through. But Elias could read lips. Don't you dare! Then Dominion rifles fired. The prisoners fell into the mud. For a moment, no one in the trench spoke. The rain kept falling. Pike made a small choking sound. Mara reached over and gripped the back of his armor. Breathe. I know. They were ours. I know. Pike's hands shook around his rifle. Elias felt something old and dangerous rise inside him. Not rage. Rage burned too hot. This was colder. A ledger opening. A debt recorded. War Marshal Threx had made a mistake. He thought killing prisoners would break human cohesion. He did not understand that grief could harden into structure, that pain could become discipline, that humans did not always fight because they believed they would live. Sometimes they fought because the dead had handed them the bill. Elias opened the command channel. All units, listen. Grady and 2nd Platoon are gone. We carry them now. We get to Fort Mercy. We hold the relay. We make Threx spend everything he has for every meter. No one cheered. Good. Cheers were cheap. Instead, Mara checked her magazine. Pike wiped his visor with one glove and nodded. Holt tightened Chow's sled harness. Denton, pale and sweating, lifted his rifle with one hand. I can cover the trench, Holt snapped. You can barely stand. Denton looked at Elias. I can sit and shoot, Captain. Elias understood what he was asking. A rear guard. A delay. A choice no commander wanted and every commander eventually faced. No, Elias said. Denton's face tightened. Sir, no one gets left for pride. You're coming until you can't. Mara leaned close on a private channel. Elias, we don't have time to drag everyone through that culvert. He hated that she used his first name. It meant she was not speaking as a sergeant. She was speaking as the person who had pulled him out of the Ceres wreckage after Mina died. I know, he said. Then decide. He looked at the trench. At the wounded. At Rook. At Pike's frightened eyes, at the fort flickering in the distance. Then the midpoint of the battle arrived with a sound like the sky splitting. Fort Mercy's North Shield Tower failed. A blue-white dome collapsed inward, leaving one section of wall exposed. Dominion artillery immediately shifted fire. The wall buckled. Colonel Bell's voice burst through the comm, raw with static. Boss, if you're alive, move now. They're not just attacking the fort, they're drilling toward the relay vault from below. We found Dominion tunneling signatures under the western ridge. Rook's head snapped up. Impossible. The substrate there is unstable. Elias turned to him. What? Rook's voice changed. Weakness vanished beneath horror. The Dominion knew about the culvert. The ambush field, the prisoners, the south gate, all of it pushed survivors west. Holt whispered. They wanted us to take the drain. Rook nodded. The culvert is not an entrance. It is a funnel. Elias looked at the map. Western Ridge, drainage culvert, Dominion tunneling signatures. Threx had not been chasing them. He had been hurting them. And if the Dominion reached the relay through the same underground channel, Fort Mercy's walls would not matter. The battle was already lost unless someone sealed the tunnel. Mara saw it too.
We'd blow the culvert. We needed to get inside.
Not if they use it first. Elias stared through the rain toward the west. The valley had shifted under his feet. Their mission was no longer reaching safety. It was denying the enemy access, even if safety vanished with it. Pike's voice cracked.
Captain, if we blow it, how do we get to the fort?
No one answered. Then Rook spoke. There is another way. Every helmet turned toward him. Rook dragged himself upright against the trench wall. The old relay installations required emergency maintenance shafts, vertical access from the ridge crest. They would be sealed, hidden from scans, but marked by geothermal regulators. Mara said, "Inhuman, please." Small towers, black metal, warm to the touch. Elias scanned the ridge through his scope. Fog, rain, broken stone. Then he saw it. A thin black spike protruding from the hillside above the culvert, half buried in mineral crust.
How do we open it?
Rook hesitated.
The mechanism was designed for pre-Union engineers, not Dominion, not Coalition.
But pressure sequencing may work, if applied manually. Holt stared at him. You mean someone has to stand outside in the poison rain and work an alien lock while an army shoots at us? Rook looked at Elias. Yes, Mara snorted. Well, finally, a plan made for humans. They moved west under fire. Denton refused the sled and limped until his legs gave out. Then Pike carried him over one shoulder, cursing the whole way. Holt dragged Cal. Rook stumbled between Elias and Mara, each of them holding one of his arms. Dominion drones found them halfway to the ridge. Small black discs dropped from the fog, rotors whispering, guns unfolding like spider legs.
Down!
Mara shouted. The drones opened fire. Rounds cracked across the rocks. One punched through a soldier named Wynn's helmet seal. He dropped, hands clawing at his throat. Holt lunged toward him. Elias grabbed her harness. He's gone.
He might not be. Samira.
She froze. Wynn's suit convulsed once, then went still. Holt's eyes burned through her visor.
I'm tired of triage. I know. No, Captain, you don't. You give orders and they die.
I touch them while it happens. The words struck harder than enemy fire. Elias had no defense against them. Then Mara's rifle barked from the ridge. One drone exploded, then another. Pike, still carrying Denton, braced his rifle one-handed against a rock and fired short bursts like Mara had taught him. A drone dipped low. Rook raised his sidearm with both shaking hands and shot it clean through the sensor lens. The disc spiraled into the mud and burst. Mara glanced at him. Not bad, Bird. Rook coughed. I am beginning to understand the appeal of crude ballistics.
Careful,
Mara said.
That's how we get you a beer.
They reached the black spike at the ridge crest. It was not a tower. It was a hatch marker. The ground around it was slick obsidian, warm beneath Elias's boots. 3 circular plates surrounded the spike, each marked with symbols older than every living empire in the Coalition. Below them, Dominion drilling machines thundered. The enemy was directly under the ridge. Elias planted charges near the culvert mouth while Mara set a defensive line. Holt worked on Rook, injecting stabilizers that would have killed a human by stopping his heart. Pike helped Denton into a firing position behind a slab of glass. War Marshal Threx appeared in the fog below with 2 full companies. His armor was scorched from the vent field. One of his 4 arms hung useless. The strip cloak was gone. He had survived. Elias was not surprised. Some enemies were too mean to die quickly. Threx's amplified voice rolled up the slope. Captain Voss, your file is incomplete but instructive. Ceres Ridge, civilian loss, command guilt, you are predictable. Elias went still. Mara looked at him sharply. Threx continued. You cannot abandon wounded. You cannot ignore captives. You cannot accept sacrifice when inefficient hope remains. This makes you weak. Elias felt Ceres open inside him, Mina's voice. Elias. Static. He forced his hand steady on the charge detonator. Threx raised one clawed hand. Dominion soldiers emerged, dragging another prisoner, not human, Colonel Asha Bell. Her armor was cracked, blood ran from her scalp. She had been captured during the wall breach. Threx held a blade beneath her chin. Open the relay access, Captain. Surrender your battalion's genome and endurance data. I will allow the fort's wounded to live as labor assets. Bell spat blood onto his armor. Didn't give him a damned thing, Voss. Threx tightened the blade. Pike whispered.
Captain?
Holt said.
We can't let him.
Mara cut in, voice low.
He's doing it again.
Elias stared down the slope. Threx was right about one thing. Elias could not stop seeing the people he had failed. Mina under the dome, Grady in the mud, Win in the rain, every name carved into him. But Threx had misunderstood the wound. It did not make Elias obedient, it made him careful with the price. He opened a private channel to Mara. Can you hit the blade arm? Wind's bad, rain's worse. Can you hit it? A pause. Yes. On my mark. Then he opened the external speaker. War Marshal Threx. The alien lifted his head. You studied my file, Elias said. You missed the important part. And what is that? Elias looked at Belle. The colonel's eyes narrowed. She understood before Threx did. Elias said, humans don't refuse sacrifice. We just hate wasting it. Mark. Mara fired. The shot cracked across the ridge. Threx's blade arm snapped backward in a spray of dark fluid. Belle dropped instantly, rolling into the mud as Dominion soldiers fired in confusion. Elias hit the detonator. The culvert mouth vanished in fire. The ridge shook. A section of hillside collapsed, crushing the Dominion drilling tunnel beneath thousands of tons of toxic glass and stone. For one heartbeat, the battlefield was silent. Then Threx screamed, not in pain, in fury. Advance! Strip them from the ridge! The Dominions surged upward. Elias turned to the hatch. Rook! The Vare staggered to the circular plates. His hands shook as he studied the symbols. I need pressure on all 3 plates in sequence. Heavy pressure. Then release in reverse. Mara reloaded. Pike, Denton, with me. Hold the line. Pike's voice shook, but his rifle did not. Yes, Sergeant. Elias stepped onto the first plate. It sank an inch. Nothing happened. Rook pointed. Second. Holt ran to it and stomped down. The plate moved. The spike hummed. Third requires more mass, Rook said. Mara was busy firing. Denton could not move. Pike was holding off the left flank. Elias looked at Chow, unconscious on the sled. No, Holt snapped, reading his face. We need weight. Use ammo crates. Too light. Holt stood on the third plate herself. It did not move. She swore. Then Rook, trembling, stepped beside her. Together, their weight pushed it down. The hatch marker glowed faint gold. Rook's breathing became a wet rattle. Holt grabbed him. Stay with me. I am standing, Rook said. That is currently my greatest achievement. Elias watched the sequence lights flicker. Now what? Rook squinted at the symbols. Release first plate. Elias stepped off. The ground shuddered. Second. Holt stepped off. Third. Rook and Holt released together. For a second, nothing. Then a circular seam opened in the rock. Air rushed upward from below. Clean air. Filtered. Warm. The maintenance shaft yawned beneath them, a dark ladder descending into the mountain. Mara shouted, Company coming up the right! Dominion infantry crested the ridge. They were too close. Elias fired until his magazine ran dry. He slammed in another. A plasma round struck his left shoulder and knocked him down. The armor held, but heat punched deep. His arm went useless. Pike saw him fall. Captain, keep firing! Pike turned back, crying openly now, and kept firing. Denton shot from the ground with one hand until his rifle overheated. Mara moved like a machine, selecting targets, dropping enemies, shifting positions before they could pin her down. Belle crawled up from below the ridge, having escaped in the confusion. She was bleeding badly but alive. She grabbed a fallen Dominion pistol and shot an alien twice in the back. Voss, she shouted. Inside, now! Elias pushed himself up. Holt, take Rook and Chow down. I'm not leaving you. That wasn't a request. For once, she obeyed without arguing. She and Belle dragged Rook toward the hatch. Pike helped lower Chow. Denton went next, cursing every rung of the ladder. One by one, the survivors disappeared into the shaft. Mara stayed. Of course she stayed. Elias looked at her. Go. You first. That's an order. File a complaint. Threx emerged through the smoke at the ridge crest. His armor was ruined. One arm gone, another mangled. Still he came, carrying a heavy Dominion sidearm in each remaining hand. Around him, his soldiers hesitated. Not because the humans were winning. They were not. The ridge was littered with dead Terrans. Their defensive line had collapsed to 2 people in a hatch. The Dominion hesitated because the humans were still there, still firing, still standing in poison rain after every other species would have been dead hours ago. Threx raised both weapons. You cannot endure forever, he snarled. Elias lifted his rifle with his good arm. No, Mara stepped beside him. But we can endure longer than you planned. Threx fired. Mara shoved Elias hard. The plasma bolt struck her in the abdomen. She fell against him, armor smoking. Elias caught her with one arm. Mara, she gasped, teeth clenched. Still, here! Threx advanced. Elias's rifle hung empty. His sidearm was jammed. His left arm was useless. The hatch was open behind him. Mara was bleeding out in his grip. For 12 years, Elias had feared the same moment, being forced to choose who lived, being forced to let go. Mina's voice whispered from memory, Elias. But this time, he was not alone in a broken corridor, too far away to matter. This time, Mara looked up at him and said, "Don't you dare freeze." That saved him. Not courage, not rage, a friend telling him to move. Elias grabbed Mara's grenade belt. She understood at once. Her blood-slick hand closed over his. "Bad idea," she whispered. "Very. Mean?" "Extremely." She smiled, despite the pain. Elias armed 3 grenades and clipped them to a fallen Dominion shield emitter lying near the hatch. The device still pulsed weakly, projecting a flickering half-dome. He kicked it toward Threx. The War Marshal looked down too late. The shield caught the blast and shaped it inward. Fire and shrapnel folded around him like a fist. Threx vanished. The shock wave threw Elias and Mara backward into the open hatch. They fell. The maintenance shaft swallowed them. Elias hit a ladder rung with his back, lost his grip, slammed into someone below, and tumbled into darkness. He landed on metal grating hard enough to crack his visor. For a moment, there was only pain. Then voices. "Halt! Over here! Captain's down! Mara's hit! Move, move!" Clean air hissed around them. Emergency lights glowed amber along ancient walls. The shaft opened into a maintenance tunnel beneath Fort Mercy, lined with pre-Union machinery that still hummed after 10,000 years. Holt tore Elias's helmet off only after confirming the air was safe. The first breath hurt. It tasted like metal and old dust, but it did not burn. Elias tried to sit up. Holt shoved him down. "Do that again and I sedate you." "Mara, I'm working on her." Mara lay 3 meters away, armor cut open, blood dark against the grating. Bell held pressure on the wound while Pike knelt beside her, face pale and wet. Mara's eyes found Elias. "Did we get him?" Elias turned his head. At the far end of the tunnel, the hatch above groaned under impact. Dominion soldiers were trying to force it open. Then a deep rumble rolled through the mountain. The charges at the culvert had triggered a larger collapse. Rock sealed the upper access. The impact stopped. Elias exhaled. "We got the tunnel." Mara frowned. "That's not what I asked." No one answered. She closed her eyes. Holt snapped. "Do not sleep." Mara opened one eye. "You always this bossy with patience? Only the stupid ones." "Then I'm in excellent hands." Colonel Bell stood, swaying. "Captain Voss, can you move?" Holt looked at her like she had suggested murder. Bell's voice hardened. "Dominion breached the outer fort. The relay vault is still at risk. If Threx survived, he'll send everything through the main breach. I need Terran infantry now." Elias forced himself upright. Pain washed white across his vision. He waited for it to pass. Then he stood. Pike stared at him. "Sir, your shoulder." "Still attached. Barely. Barely counts." Holt shook her head. "You're all insane." Elias looked at her. "You knew that when you signed the transfer. I signed for hazard pay." Mara coughed blood and laughed, which made Holt curse. They moved through the maintenance tunnel into Fort Mercy. The fort was dying. Alarms wailed. Smoke-filled corridors. Coalition defenders of half a dozen species staggered under toxin exposure and exhaustion. Some stared openly as the humans emerged from beneath the motor pool, covered in mud, blood, acid burns, and black rain residue. A Talar soldier with translucent skin whispered through his mask, "How are they alive?" Pike heard it. For the first time since the crash, he straightened. "Practice," he said. Fort Mercy's command center was a buried bunker with a cracked holotable and one functioning door. Colonel Bell limped in, took command from a stunned adjutant, and brought up the battle map. The Dominion had breached the north wall. 3 assault columns were inside the fort. Their objective was the relay vault at the center. Coalition defenders were scattered and failing. Bell looked at Elias. "I have engineers rigging the relay for demolition, but they need 20 minutes. Elias studied the map. The corridors formed a narrow choke point before the vault. One way and wide enough for Dominion armor. 2 side maintenance passages. A service lift. Not enough soldiers. Never enough soldiers. "How many Terrans inside the fort?" he asked. Bell answered, "Including you? 43 combat capable, maybe 60 walking wounded. Give me the walking wounded." Holt snapped, "Absolutely not." Elias turned to her. "Can they hold rifles?" "Some." "Can they sit?" Her face changed as she understood. "You want to turn the vault corridor into a firing gallery. I want to turn every meter into attacks." Mara, being loaded onto a stretcher, raised one bloody thumb. "Make it expensive." Elias leaned over her. "You're done. Tragic. I mean it." "So do I. Don't die before I can mock your leadership in person." He touched her shoulder once. Then he went to build the line. The humans of the 9th Battalion gathered in the vault corridor. Some had arrived on other transports. Some had survived crashes. Some had been burned, limping, concussed, half-poisoned, or patched with foam and tape. None looked ready for parade. All looked ready for work. Elias walked the line. There was Corporal Gian with one eye swollen shut. Specialist Ramirez, whose filter pack had failed and who now breathed through a field tube jammed into her neck seal. Private Pike, still carrying Grady's spare magazine because he refused to throw it away. Denton, strapped into a maintenance chair with his rifle braced across his knees. Holt moved among them, injecting stimulants and muttering threats. Rook sat near the hollow table with Colonel Bell, wrapped in thermal foil, barely conscious but still translating intercepted Dominion signals. Elias stopped before Pike. The private's hands were steady now. Not calm. Steady. "You good?" Elias asked. Pike looked down the corridor. "No, sir. Good answer. I'm scared. Me too." Pike glanced at him, surprised. Elias said, "Courage isn't lack of fear. It's doing math while fear screams." "What math? How many seconds until they reach us? How many rounds left? Who needs cover? When to move? When to hold?" Pike swallowed. "And if the math says we die, then we make sure the math is worse for them." The Dominion hit the corridor 3 minutes later. They came behind shield plates and rolling gun drones, stepping over dead coalition defenders, firing as they advanced. Elias let them come 20 meters inside. Then he gave the order. The corridor became thunder. Human rifles fired from floor level, wall braces, ceiling maintenance alcoves. Armor-piercing rounds hammered Dominion shields from 3 angles at once. Grenades skipped low beneath shield rims. Flamers filled the corridor with burning gel that stuck to enemy joints and optics. The Corvath did not break. They advanced over their dead. That was their strength. They were disciplined, fearless, engineered for war. But they had never fought humans in a corridor built of stone and stubbornness. Every time the Dominion adapted, the humans changed the problem. When shield plates locked forward, Pike and Gian crawled through a maintenance duct and shot the emitters from the side. When drones rolled in, Denton triggered magnetic clamps in the floor and pinned them long enough for Holt to dump surgical oxygen into the corridor and ignite it. When Dominion infantry switched to gas shells, the humans laughed through sealed helmets and kept shooting because Charon had already tried to poison them harder. Minutes stretched. The first assault failed, then the second, then the third. The corridor filled with smoke so thick, the muzzle flashes looked like lightning behind storm clouds. Elias's shoulder screamed, his vision blurred. He lost count of how many times he reloaded. At one point, a Corvath soldier burst through the smoke and tackled him. They hit the floor together. The alien was stronger. Its mandible snapped against Elias's visor. One claw punched through his side armor. Elias jammed his forearm across its throat and could not move it. Then Pike appeared and struck the alien with an entrenching tool. Once, twice, a third time. The Corvath collapsed. Pike stood over it, breathing hard. Elias looked up at him. "Entrenching tool?" Pike's voice shook with adrenaline. "Sergeant Keene said if I ran out of bullets, I should hit somebody with earth." Elias laughed despite everything. Then the relay vault doors opened behind them. An engineer shouted, "Charges set! 10 minutes to full overload!" Bell's voice came over comms. "Voss, fall back to secondary line." Elias looked at the corridor. The Dominion dead were piled waist-high in places, but beyond them more movement gathered, and through the smoke walked War Marshal Threx. Alive. His armor was half melted. One side of his body was blackened. Mechanical braces held his torso upright. He carried no rifle now, only a long, curved blade glowing at the edge. The surviving Corvath parted around him. Threx's translator sparked with distortion. "Human." Elias stood. "Marshal, you cost me a campaign. You cost me good people. They were expendable." Elias felt every human in the corridor hear that word. Expendable. Threx pointed the blade toward the vault. "The relay is Dominion property by right of conquest." Colonel Bell answered over the loudspeaker. "Come take it." Threx charged. So did the Dominion. The final assault hit like a collapsing building. Elias ordered the fallback, but it became a brawl. Rifles fired at arm's length. Blades struck armor. Humans dragged wounded by their harnesses while still shooting over their shoulders. The secondary line was 20 meters back. It might as well have been a mile. Denton's chair overturned. He kept firing from the floor until his magazine emptied. A Corvath lifted a blade over him. Holt shot it in the head with a pistol. Denton blinked. "Doc?" "Shut up," she said, and dragged him by one boot. Pike took a round to the thigh and fell. Elias grabbed his armor and hauled him back. Pike gritted his teeth. "Leave me, sir." "No." "Sir, I can't walk." "Then crawl angry." Pike stared, then laughed through pain and crawled backward, firing at the smoke. Threx broke through the line near the vault door. Elias met him there. The War Marshal's blade came down. Elias caught the strike on his rifle. The weapon split in half. Heat scorched his gloves. Threx kicked him in the chest, driving him against the vault frame. "You are not superior," Threx hissed. Elias tasted blood. "Never said we were." Threx struck again. Elias ducked. The blade carved sparks from the wall. "You are crude organisms from a hostile mudball," Threx said. "You mistake suffering for strength." Elias slammed his broken rifle stock into Threx's damaged side. The Marshal staggered. Elias drove forward. "No," he said. "We make use of it." Threx caught him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Elias's boots kicked empty air. Alarms screamed. 5 minutes to relay overload. Beyond Threx, Elias saw Bell being carried by 2 engineers. He saw Holt dragging Denton. He saw Pike crawling, leaving blood behind him, still refusing to stop. He saw Rook at the command station, barely upright, black eyes fixed on the Dominion frequency. Then Rook spoke over every channel in the fort. "Not in Coalition Standard, in Korvath Command Code." His voice was weak, but the words had the hard rhythm of orders. "Dominion, 3rd Spear, priority override, biohazard breach, human pathogen exposure confirmed, quarantine protocol mandatory, seal all forward units." Threx froze. So did the Korvath behind him. For one precious second, their armor systems obeyed, their suits sealed, their external sensors shuttered, their comms locked into quarantine mode. Elias dropped as Threx's grip loosened. He hit the floor, pulled Mara's last grenade from his belt, and shoved it into the exposed mechanical brace on Threx's torso. The Marshal looked down. Elias rasped, "You studied our endurance." He rolled away. "You should have studied our friends." The grenade detonated inside Threx's armor. The War Marshal came apart in a burst of metal and black fire. The Dominion line faltered. Mara's voice, weak but alive, suddenly cut through Elias's calm from the medbay. "Helllockers." Every human channel answered with ragged breathing. Mara coughed. "Push." They did. Not with glory. Not with clean uniforms and shining banners. They pushed like miners clearing a cave-in. Like firefighters climbing burning stairs. Like old soldiers too tired to hate properly but too stubborn to fall. The humans rose from the secondary line and drove the stunned Dominion back down the corridor. Pike crawled to a fallen drone turret and turned it by hand. Denton fed him ammunition. Holt fired over both of them while shouting medical instructions and insults in equal measure. Elias picked up a Dominion rifle and used it until it overheated, then threw it into an alien's face and took another. The Korvath finally broke, not all at once. One squad stepped back, then another. Then the retreat became a flood. At 2 minutes to overload, Colonel Bell gave the evacuation order. At 90 seconds, the last human fell back through the blast doors. At 60 seconds, Rook collapsed at the command station after sending the false quarantine order on repeat through every Dominion channel in the valley. At 30 seconds, Elias stood in the vault doorway and looked back at the corridor. The dead lay thick there, human and alien, Coalition and Dominion, all of them silent now beneath the alarms. Pike limped up beside him, supported by Holt. "Captain," he said, "we have to go." Elias nodded. He keyed one final open transmission. "War Marshal Threx is dead. Blackglass Valley remains denied. To any Dominion unit still listening, this is Captain Elias Voss of the 9th Terran Infantry." He looked at the bodies of his soldiers. His voice dropped. "You came here to learn what makes humans hard to kill. The answer was never our bones, never our blood, never our death world." He stepped back as the vault doors began to close. "It's who we refuse to leave behind." The doors sealed, the relay detonated, the mountain roared. Fort Mercy shook down to its foundations. Lights failed. Air ducts burst. Somewhere above, the ancient relay burned itself into molten slag, taking with it the Dominion's chance to control the junk corridors. The shockwave rolled through the valley and shattered every remaining drill tunnel beneath the ridge. Outside, Blackglass Valley swallowed the Dominion army. Their armor protected them from bullets. Their machines protected them from radiation. Their doctrine protected them from panic. Nothing protected them from Karen once their supply lines broke and their command codes collapsed into quarantine confusion. The storm did the rest. By dawn, if dawn existed under Karen's black clouds, the Dominion 3rd Spear had ceased to function as an army. Some fled. Some surrendered. Some vanished into the fog and were never found. The Coalition relief fleet arrived 18 hours later. They expected ruins. They found Fort Mercy still standing. Barely. Its walls were cracked. Its towers dead, its corridors burned hollow. But above the command bunker, someone had raised a torn Terran field flag beside the Coalition standard, not as conquest, as proof of life. Elias woke in a medical bay with his left arm immobilized, his ribs wrapped in an oxygen tube under his nose. For a moment, he did not know where he was. Then he heard Mara. "Don't move." He turned his head. She lay in the next bed, pale as moon dust, tubes running from her side, eyes half open. "You look terrible," Elias said. "Command presence," she whispered. Holt appeared between them like an angry ghost. "If either of you tries to stand, I will personally paralyze you for your own safety." Elias managed to smile. "How's Rook?" Holt's expression softened despite herself. "Alive." Annoyingly. His species apparently responds well to human-grade stubbornness and experimental blood oxygenation. From across the bay came a thin voice. "I heard that, Doctor." Rook laid beneath the thermal canopy, feathers dulled but eyes open. Mara turned her head slightly. "Still want that beer?" Rook considered this. "I have reviewed the chemical composition. It appears poisonous." Pike's voice came from the doorway. "That means yes." He limped in on a brace, carrying 4 ration cups of something pretending to be coffee. He looked older than he had in the transport bay, not by years, by weight. He handed one to Elias. The captain took it with his good hand. Pike looked down. "Sir." "About 2nd Platoon. About Grady." Elias waited. Pike's jaw worked. "I keep thinking we should have saved them. We all do. Does it stop?" Elias looked at the steam rising from the cup. He thought of Mina, of Ceres Ridge, of Grady mouthing, "Don't you dare," of Win in the rain. "No," he said, "but it changes." Pike sat slowly on the edge of an empty bed. "Into what?" Elias looked at the survivors around him. Mara breathing. Holt scowling. Rook alive against every probability. Bell standing beyond the glass, already giving orders with a bandage around her skull. "Duty," Elias said, "if you let it." Pike nodded. Not healed, not fine, but listening. 3 days later, the Coalition War Council convened over Blackglass Valley. Admirals and generals from 14 species filled the holochamber aboard the carrier Resolute. Many had argued against deploying humans to Charon. Too aggressive, some had said. Too primitive, too biologically reckless. Now they watched combat footage in silence. Humans marching through poison rain. Humans carrying wounded aliens. Humans turning toxic vents into traps. Humans holding a corridor after every tactical projection predicted collapse. The Vayer High Strategist finally spoke. "Our models classified Earth-origin infantry as high-risk shock assets." Rook, still seated because Holt had forbidden him to stand, lifted his head. "Your models were incomplete." The chamber turned toward him. He continued, voice raspy but clear. "Humans are not merely durable. Many species are durable. They are not merely aggressive. Many species are aggressive. Their advantage is social endurance under catastrophic stress." One admiral clicked in confusion. Rook glanced toward Elias, who stood at the rear in dress blacked with his arm in a sling. "They continue because others continue. They suffer, then redistribute suffering through action. They improvise not because they lack doctrine, but because they refuse to let doctrine become an excuse for failure." Mara, standing beside Elias against medical advice, whispered, "Bird gives a decent speech." Elias whispered back, "Don't tell him." The high strategist bowed his narrow head. "Then what is your recommendation, Lieutenant Rook?" Rook looked at the footage frozen on the screen. Pike dragging Denton, Holt firing a pistol over a wounded man, Mara standing in the rain beside Elias at the hatch. "My recommendation," Rook said, "is that no Coalition commander deploy human infantry as expendable assets again. They are not beasts for toxic fields. They are not emergency biological tools. They are soldiers. Treat them as such, and they may save worlds. Waste them, and you will deserve the loss." The chamber remained silent. Then Colonel Bell stood. "I second the recommendation." One by one, the other commanders agreed. Not out of kindness, not entirely, out of fear, out of respect, out of the cold political understanding that the Dominion had thrown an army into Blackglass Valley and found something worse than terrain waiting for them. It had found humans with a reason to hold. Weeks later, when the official casualty lists reached Earth, families opened messages in quiet kitchens, on porch steps, in Martian habs, on lunar farms, and aboard refinery stations in the belt. Some messages brought relief. Some broke hearts. The names of the fallen from Fort Mercy were carved into a memorial plate made from recovered black glass. At the top, under the emblem of the 9th Terran Expeditionary Infantry, someone engraved a line Pike had written in his report. They said no army could hold the valley. So we held each other. The phrase spread farther than anyone expected. It appeared on unit walls, on helmets, on the side of a repair drone in the Fort Mercy motor pool, and eventually, intercepted Dominion intelligence recorded a new classification for human infantry. Not primitive, not reckless, not merely deathworlders. The Corvath file used 3 words: unbreakable cohesion threat. Elias Voss read the translation in his quarters aboard the Resolute and set the slate down. Beyond the viewport, Karin turned slowly beneath a veil of black storms. He thought of Mina, as he did every day. But for the first time in years, the memory did not end only in static. It ended in voices answering after the crash. Keen alive, Holt alive, Pike alive, Rook alive. Not everyone, never everyone, but enough to keep going. Mara knocked once and entered without waiting. Her uniform jacket hung open over bandages. She held 2 ration tins. Doctor says you're supposed to eat. Doctor says you're supposed to be in bed. Doctor says many things. She tossed him a tin. He caught it badly with one hand. Mara sat across from him and looked out at the planet. Hell of a place. Yes. Think they'll send us somewhere worse? Elias opened the ration tin and smelled something that claimed to be beef stew. Probably. Mara smiled. This time, the scar on her cheek pulled gently. Good. He looked at her. Good? She shrugged, then winced because shrugging was a mistake. Someone will need infantry. Elias turned back to Charon. Down there, Blackglass Valley steamed under poison rain. A graveyard, a battlefield, a warning. The galaxy had learned that humans could survive where others failed. But Elias knew the truth was heavier than that. Humans broke. They bled. They panicked. They mourned. They carried wounds no armor could seal. And still, when the storm came down and the enemy advanced through the dark, they reached for the person beside them. They lifted. They dragged. They fired. They endured. Not because Deathworlds made them fearless, but because Earth had taught them that survival was never a solitary act. And, on a toxic battlefield beneath a murdered sky, when an empire came to break them, the Deathworld Battalion showed the stars what every human soldier already knew. You do not have to be unbreakable alone. You only have to hold the line long enough for someone else to stand with you. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Midnight Galaxy for more HFY tales from the darkest stars. Humanity's next battlefield is already waiting.